Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, peace and blessings. Welcome to Pathways to Spirituality, an online workshop series that we've been hosting during this blessed month of Ramadan. This is the final workshop for the month, and I'm extremely excited about it. My name is Tazeen Ayub, and I am one of the co-directors of the Detroit chapter of GAMA, Gathering All Muslim Artists. GAMA is a nonprofit, artist-run collective that aims to build a platform to support and really elevate Muslim creatives and Muslim artists globally. So our programming is community run and run on community donations. So we do ask that if you're able to, please consider donating generously and of course support the artists by sharing this video. Today, I am incredibly honored and excited to welcome Sukina Pilgrim to Pathways. She is a poet, a spoken word artist, a workshop facilitator from the UK, and today she's leading us in a workshop on poetry on divine love. So we invite you all to bring your pen, your pencil, your notebook or paper, and use this workshop as a means to dig deeper, to engage with your deeper selves and your hearts ultimately by means of the poetry. So without further ado, welcome Sakina. Let's begin. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. My name is Sukina Pilgrim and I'm a poet, spoken word artist, playwright and workshop facilitator from London. I'm really happy. I'm really excited that I'm here today with you guys. I'm really happy and honoured that GAMA invited me to be a facilitator for really what I think is an important workshop series, particularly in these uncertain times, which is creativity as a pathway to spirituality. I know that you've had different teachers that have come to guide you in different art forms. My art form is that of the written word, is that of poetry. So what we're going to be doing today is doing a series of exercises that will spark, and I guess initiate us on the journey towards the voice of the heart, listening to our spiritual selves, and trying to put language onto that reality. From my perspective, I believe writing poetry from the heart is where some of the most beautiful poetry comes from, and the heart is always communicating with us. The heart always has something to say. Oftentimes we don't listen, that's the first thing, and sometimes we don't have the vocabulary to translate the language of the heart or the language of the soul. So we're going to be doing a few exercises just to kind of bring us into this space, and my hopes and my highest hopes for you is that it allows you to begin some kind of spiritual dialogue within yourself, and hopefully, inshallah, good poetry will come out of that too. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a free write. For those who don't know, a free write is exactly as it sounds. It is to write freely for a certain period of time without overthinking, without second guessing, without editing. It's just to literally write and just let it flow. The aim of this is, I guess, to kind of check in with yourself. Many people say this is a way in which you can listen to your subconscious mind. I just think it's a good way to begin any writing experience by just flowing, getting into some kind of flow. What I want you to do though is I'm going to give you a phrase that I want you to begin with. So you're going to begin with the phrase, here I am. So you're going to start with here I am, and then you flow into your poem. Okay, so here I am, and then you flow. You have 5 minutes for this exercise. Don't think too much about it, just enjoy the process. Okay, so I hope you guys found that free write to be okay. The way I kind of imagine that free write is almost like you have, if someone leaves a lid off the toothpaste, right, you have that hard layer before you get to the toothpaste. I see the free write really as a way to kind of just get rid of that hard layer, so you've got the toothpaste you can access, which is your creativity. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is an exercise called Dear Heart. This is an exercise that I like to do at the beginning of the workshops, because the free write is about checking in with yourself, figuring out where you're feeling right, how you're feeling right now. Dear Heart is about checking in with your heart, you know. And the reason why this is important is because I really see the heart as a very important center of spirituality and also creativity that has a spiritual component or has a spiritual edge. So I really think it's important for us to begin by starting to have narrative and dialogue with the heart. Okay, we know from the Islamic tradition that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said there's a lump of flesh that in your body, that if it is sound, the whole body is sound, and if it is corrupt, the whole body is corrupt, and that is the heart. So it really shows you the significance of the heart and the state of the heart. There's also a very famous hadith which says, that Allah says, the heavens and the earth cannot contain me, but I can be contained in the heart of a believer, you know. So again, it really is showing you the significance of the heart. So then what then happens when we tune into the voice of this very same heart? You know, it to me, it's a center of so much, you know. And so this is something that I really want us to begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very simple exercise which is called Dear Heart. What you're going to do is you're literally going to either write on paper or tune in with your heart itself and ask your heart how it is. Literally, dear heart, how are you doing? Dear heart, how are you feeling? And I want you to write your response from the perspective of the heart. So not my heart is feeling heavy or my heart is exhausted, but I am tired or I am heavy or I am happy, right? So the aim is to really start to navigate the voice of the heart. Okay, so you have 10 minutes for this exercise. Good. So I know for many people, when they do that exercise, if they have never done an exercise like that before, it can be a bit difficult. Maybe it can take a while to kind of get the heart to speak, or it can take a while to kind of really listen, or it can be so overwhelming that you don't necessarily have the language to translate the voice of the heart, or it might just flow. It might just be for some people it's a very spiritual experience, for some it's very powerful, for some it's very emotional. So I'm hoping that it had some kind of impact on you. And if it didn't, this is an exercise that you can continue way after this workshop. If you're trying to kind of begin this this relationship with your heart, then this is something you can do every day. Good. Okay, so the next exercise we're going to do is an exercise about a spiritual moment, right? So basically what I want you to do is think about a spiritual moment in your life, a moment where you felt connected to the divine in some way, a moment where you felt transcendental, a moment where you felt almost as though you were not yourself, as though time had stood still. It can be something literally religious, like when you went on Hajj, or when you've been in sujood, or reading Quran, for example. Or it can be something like a moment in nature. Maybe you just were in nature and you just witnessed an ancient tree and it just had a profound impact on you. Maybe it's being immersed in water. Maybe you were swimming and you were just in this moment. For some it could be sport. Maybe you surf, or maybe running, or horse riding. Just a moment where you felt connected to something higher than yourself, right? So I want you to think about that moment for a while. Just give yourself a moment to kind of recollect it, to feel it, to try and feel the wind that was on your face, or to try and smell whatever fragrances were happening, whatever visceral experience you had. Try and remember these things, right? So what I want you to do, this is going to be an interesting little one. So I want you to write about this experience. I want you to write about this experience. But what I want you to do is I'm going to give you the ending. So you can write about your experience, but I want you to have this ending. So this is the ending. Where I'm reading it from, it has a feminine pronoun, but obviously if you're a man, you just change it to he, but I'm going to read it with a feminine pronoun. So this is the ending. She came out of the water and lay down in the grass under the dazzling golden light. She noticed all the fruit on the trees and the many green birds in the trees. She saw people coming through the meadow. She went out to meet them. They came up to her and took her hands and embraced her. Right? So whatever you write, whatever your story is, it has to come back to this ending. She came out of the water and lay down in the grass under the dazzling golden light. Okay? So have fun with it. Enjoy. And I look forward to hearing how it went for you. Really excited to hear how this exercise went for you guys. I hope that it was, really interesting and experimental. And this is another technique in poetry, right? Sometimes you can just find endings and use and write a story and you don't know how, but somehow you have to get to this ending. How are you going to get there? So it's just ways to play. This is, for me, what I see poetry in these types of workshops is we're just playing. I'm going to do some exercises. For some of you, it's going to really resonate with you. I'm going to do some exercises. It's not going to be your cup of tea. Totally fine. It's just about trying new things and finding what works for you. So what we did there is I gave you an ending. What I'm going to do, what the next exercise is about, is actually giving you a beginning or giving you something to initiate your poems. So this is a technique that I think is very, very helpful. Helpful to kind of give you inspiration, but B, to kind of help you tune in to poems that have a particular content. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at two poets, one, I guess, ancient Sufi poet and one contemporary poet. The first poet we're going to look at is Hafid, incredible, one of my favorite poets. And what I love about him as a poet is his playfulness when it comes to God. I like the fact that he probably says things that would annoy, you know, the ulama or the, you know, the literalists, but he has this kind of childlike relationship with God, which I think is very important. Sometimes our relationship with our Creator can be so serious and so fear-filled, but it's like, just enjoy the journey, you know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this poem to you called Sweet Crushed Angel. And what I want you to do after I've read it, and we're going to put the text on the screen, is I want you to just choose a line or two that resonates with you in some way and use that to initiate your own poem. All right? So just as you're listening to it, as you're reading it, think of like what line literally grabs your heart. Use that line as an initiator for your own poem. Now, one thing I do want to talk about a little bit is the role of poetry within a Sufi context, because I think it's very important to kind of understand that for many of the Sufi poets, the intention in them writing poetry was not necessarily literature. It wasn't that they were necessarily trying to be among the literary elite, right? For many of the Sufi poets, the poetry is connected to a spiritual state or a spiritual tasting, right? They're having an experience with God that is such that the only way in which they can convey it or communicate it is through poetry. And I think the use of symbol and sign and metaphor and simile and visual imagery in poetry gives the mystic the kind of tools to navigate a landscape wherein they're able to communicate something that is in some cases inexplicable. So a lot of Sufi poetry and the recitation of Sufi poetry throughout time, or why Sufis love poetry, is because they're trying to join the writer in their state, right? Whatever state they were in when they wrote that poem, the Sufis of today or the modern Sufis are trying to arrive at the same place, which is why you'll go to gatherings and you'll hear qasidas being recited. Why? Because we understand that the people who wrote these poems had a certain experience, and we're hoping that by way of reciting their poetry, we too can share in that. So just to give a bit of context, right? Anyway, this poem is called Sweet Crushed Angel. My sweet crushed angel, you have not danced so badly, my dear, trying to hold hands with the beautiful one. You have waltzed with great style, my sweet crushed angel, to have ever neared God's heart at all. Our partner is notoriously difficult to follow, and even his best musicians are not always easy to hear. So what if the music has stopped for a while? So what if the price of admission to the divine is out of reach tonight? So what, my dear, if you do not have the ante to gamble for real love? The mind and body are famous for holding the heart ransom, but Hafiz knows the beloved's eternal habits. Have patience, for he will not be able to resist your longing for long. You have not danced so badly, my dear, trying to kiss the beautiful one. You have actually waltzed with tremendous style, oh my sweet crushed angel. So what I want you to do is look over the poem, maybe read it to yourself, and just choose a line or two or a few words that just grab you, and use that as a launch pad into your own piece. Try and keep it on theme with what Hafiz is talking about. So, you know, he's really, I guess, talking about sometimes on the journey towards God, sometimes on the spiritual path, you can feel deflated, you can feel wounded, you can feel like, am I ever going to get the nearness that I yearn for? But what he's saying is, don't be so hard on yourself. You know, you've done well. The fact that you've even gotten this far is a good thing. Just be patient and keep going. You know, the fact that you're even aspiring for God in the first place, the fact that you're even seeking him is already, you know, an incredible thing. So try and stick within that theme, but then at the same time it might lead you somewhere else. You know, you might start writing and then suddenly you find yourself in your own garden. So see how you go with it. hope that was an interesting experience for you. I hope that you were able to find benefit and find a way in, a connection. What we're going to do now is look at a modern Sufi poet. So Hafid is an ancient Sufi poet, but we're going to look at a modern Sufi poet, one of my favorite poets, Amir Suleiman. And also a modern format, so it's not going to be, I'm not going to read you the text, it's actually going to be a recording, a performative recording. So I want you to listen intently to his words, and also not just the words but the ambience, like how does it feel as you're listening to the words. And also same thing, just jot down any words, any phrases, any paragraphs that just jump at you, anything that makes you go you know, and use that to spark your own piece. So again, use that as almost like a launch pad, and the aim is to try and stay in theme with what the poet is already, you know, speaking about. So try and stay within the same kind of flavor, or in the same space as the poet.
I've yet to learn the secret art of having peace at heart. I take the angst and the anger, make a piece of art, and then I speak it and I share it, and the peace departs to find its home in the warmth of the people's hearts. If I don't have peace with me, how can I have peace with God? It's all or nothing. You can't worship a piece of God. In fact, the peace of God's a facade where the secrets are. You worship God, remember God until you're seeing God. And then you're hearing and you're seeing into being God. And your hands and your feet into being God. The human being God. Only if the human beings knew who the human beings are, my Lord. I've got a soft spot for widows and killers, for orphans and oracles, for the saints and the sinners, for prophets and niggas. Every short is a picture, every word is a sentence, every sign is a scripture. This world, this life is mostly lies and fitna. Everything in this world is cursed except for those who remember. So I opened the universe and wrote a poem in the center, a post-it note, you hold it close like your coat in the winter. This'll make the sky blush and make outer space spasm. Take the head of a devil, turn his castle to a chasm. 44 Magnum within my weirdolasm. Since before Adam and before Adams. ATOM, ADAM, before BC. ADAM, PM, Carpe Diem, THEM, Wharf Dean with them, yeah. A spirit I could hear, but I couldn't see him. Said play Madison Square, but I ain't believe him. He said, yo, sell out the garden and straight Adam and Eve him. Then kick out the devil just to make you even.
I hope you enjoyed that exercise. I hope you enjoyed that poem, and I really hope that it brought some inspiration to your heart. So our final exercise that we're going to do for this session is going to be an exercise that I really want you to do in your own time. So there will be no time restrictions. I want you to take it away and in your own time find a quiet space, maybe, you know, somewhere wherein you won't be interrupted, where you can have an intimate experience with the exercise. So this exercise is basically using 1 or 2 or 3 of the 99 names of Allah to inspire your own poetry. So this idea came from a book that I brought called 99 Names of the Beloved by Camille Hamilton Adams Helminski. And it's a whole book of poems, all based on the 99 names of Allah. And I thought, how beautiful. You know, what a beautiful way to engage with God, first of all. As I said earlier, sometimes our interactions with God can be so serious and so fear-filled and, you know, so kind of, you know, I have to pray and I have to do this. So sometimes we can lose sight on the intimacy of God and the nearness of God. And the ways in which God introduces himself to his creation is by way of the 99 names of Allah. These attributes are how we get to know him. So, you know, what this exercise is about is really about choosing a name or 2 or 3 that speak to you and using it to write your own poems. I'm going to give you an example. So I'm going to read from a book called Divine Names, the 99 Healing Names of the One Love, to kind of give a bit of context, I guess, to the idea of the 99 names, of the 99 attributes. So the author, Rosina Fozia Al-Rawi, says, the divine names reflect the various aspects of the one all-encompassing love, Allah. Through the divine names, we try to sense the presence of the infinite in the finite. The names describe how to come closer to God, since they have themselves been created by God. They cannot contain him, but they give us the possibility of knowing him through them. Still, this knowledge will always be according to human assessment. The only way to approach him is to take on the colors of his attributes, namely, to set out to our own perfection and to use his attributes on ourselves until such time when the divine light out of which we were formed shines through our earthly shell and we become that which we truly are and were before we came to this earth. Okay. Then she said that the 99 divine names indicate how God can be seen and known in this world. She quotes the hadith, Allah said, I was a hidden treasure and I wished to be known. So I created the creation for me so that they may know me through me. The names hidden in him longed to manifest. And so, just like the breath escapes the body when it has been held for too long, the divine names broke out of the hidden and forever inaccessible divine being because they longed to be known and loved. Right? The divine names polish the mirror of the heart so that we may come to know the Creator both in his transcendence, greater than the created world, and in his immanence, his presence in everything. All 99 names are an expression of love that heals the heart, and so our entire being. So, thinking about the divine names in this way, this idea that, you know, God created the names and introduced himself to us through these names so that we may get to know him. This idea that from pre-existence, God existed alone in his unique oneness and in his beauty, but he wanted to be known, and we know him through his names, right? And throughout the Quran, every surah has names of God that are just we're being told who he is, the all-loving, you know, the all-giving, the owner of peace, the, you know, the all-seeing. I mean, you know, it's continual, all right? So thinking about the names of God in this way. And now I want to give you an example of a poem that can be inspired by the names of God. And again, this is by Camille Hamilton Adams Helminski. And this poem is inspired by the name Al-Hamid, which means the one worthy of praise. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read you a poem that has been inspired by the 99 names of God, again by Camille Hamilton Adams Helminski. And this poem is inspired by the name Al-Hamid, which means the one worthy of praise. O most praised one, the one worthy of all praise, you within us raise us to your stations, held in a breath of knowing you throughout the cells of these structures, created to sing the song of your love. Your book of exalted power comes to us when you see through us, and we catch your glance in the eyes of these hearts. To you belong the east and the west, all of the heavens and the earth, these bodies walking, your love, your wisdom, your generosity. Through the fields of being we dance because you have given us feet and hearts to hear the music of the spheres whose orbits trace eons of reckoning. In such perfection we marvel at your grace. The sun and the moon each traverse their given paths. The night cannot go beyond the time of day. Our parts we each must play upon this stage of your bestowal. You hold the keys to recognition of our deepest meaning, for you are the source of our being, the truly rich, worthy of praise. You have given us so many ways to know you through our fingertips, our toes, and the hairs upon our heads, the skin that vibrates with your sound, calling these hearts to pause and remember you are one, and enfold us all in your embrace, the loving, the living, sometimes hidden in the core of our hearts, sometimes resplendent. You play this game of hide and seek for the delight of the finding. Ya Wajid, you who are joy and love the laughter that bubbles up in the fountain of sight, not only throats but eyes and ears. You have given everything and tongues to praise, even though we may not yet hear all the manner of voices. Arise and be joyful, all ye lands, your Lord has come. Dance among the vines, the harvest is near. Always the harvest is here. It is not our hands that have made it. Will we not be grateful for these hands that can reach the ripened grapes and catch the dates falling from the palm trees that stand waiting to feed us? All praise be to you, most glorious, most merciful, you who are truly rich, ever enriching us with truth, the ever-living, infinitely loving, Ya Hamid, Ya Majid, Ya Rahim, Ya Ghani, Al-Mughni, Ya Haq, Ya Wajid, Al-Ahad, Ya Hay, Ya Wadud. MashaAllah. So a beautiful example of what can be done with the names of God, just taking that time to tune in and connect, connect with the names that resonate with you. Maybe Ya Latif, it might be Ya Wadud, it might be Ya Rahman, whatever resonates with you. Ya Salam, and use that as a way to not just write poems, but to connect. It's been an absolute pleasure to hold space with you, and I hope that you found these very small exercises helpful. The intention is really just to have small exercises that really allow you to begin this process of connecting with your heart, connecting with your spirit through poetry. So we had our free write, connecting ourselves with where we are. We had Dear Heart. Then we had writing about a spiritual experience. Then we had looking at the poetry of Hafiz, and then the poetry of Amir. Different things to kind of connect you to spirituality, whether it be by connecting to writers of the past or connecting with your own spiritual experience, or most importantly, connecting with the voice of your very own heart. And the last one is really about taking your time to connect with the names of Allah and seeing what comes. I hope that this workshop has been a means of ease and inspiration and some warmth of heart, and I really look forward to connecting with you soon. I'm truly honored and grateful that GAMA Collective invited me to be here with you guys, and let's keep connected. Lots of love.